Hello, everyone, and welcome to Funeral Service Insider, the podcast. And I'm really excited today to bring you Katie Houston, which you may be familiar with. She was American Film Director cover girl at one point on our magazine, and she also spoke recently at TerraCon. She's been all over the place. So I thought I was lucky I could snag her in here virtually for you all for just a few minutes. But welcome, Katie.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yes, and tell me where you're at right now.
I am in the Parting Stone lab right now in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
How exciting is that, right?
It's
So,
crazy
uh,
exciting.
before we get to that part, let us rewind just a smidge. Now, I learned about you. I learned a lot about you in the recent "The Life We Leave" movie, and there was an excerpt where you shared what it was like to go from that traditional funeral home setting into the return home environment. And would you be able to share some of that for our guests who have not seen the movie or had access to that?
Yeah, it was kind of like an oasis in the desert for me. As a traditional funeral director, I'd kind of been boxed in for for lack of a better term, and I felt constrained. And then to come to this place that didn't, I was starting from nothing. Yeah, it was kind of like an oasis in the desert where I got to stretch my wings and kind of figure out who I really was as a funeral director outside the constraints of what is traditional, and kind of grow as a person, like an individual as well.
And what drew you to the natural organic reduction business?
So we were going through COVID, and I was in a traditional funeral home where, we were offering everything. And then Washington shut down to absolutely nothing. You couldn't even have a family present at a graveside. And I felt like I had gotten into this uh, space of just order taking and returning people to their people with nothing. And I knew that was both damaging to me and to those people. And I just didn't want to be a part of that kind of turn and burn situation. And I knew I didn't. That's not why I became a funeral director. And then yeah, there was this oasis in the desert, and instead of going back to bartending, I was like, well, maybe I'll give this a shot. And here I am 5 years later.
How much time had you been practicing in the field prior to joining Return Home in the traditional funeral home setting?
So I first became a funeral director when I was still in England, and that was 2007 is when I went to mortuary school over there. And then I moved to the US in 2008, went to mortuary school again. 2010 was when I started in traditional funeral service in the US.
And what
So a
brought you
while.
here? Okay, yeah, you've been around for a minute then.
Yeah. What brought me here was an ex-husband.
Oh, okay. We all
Yeah.
okay, everyone has a unique path sometimes, right? So you found yourself at Return Home, small team, doing something new, right? I mean, I know that
Yes.
Recompose had already established itself and was already operating at that point, but this was new for you. Did you find yourself creating processes and creating ways of doing things because there was no real playbook and this was new?
100%. It was absolutely starting from scratch on just about everything. Bree had been there for a little bit before me, but had not really met with a lot of families or gotten kind of in the weeds of it. So, yeah, it was creating something from nothing and really learning to listen to families and what they wanted. Everything that we kind of improved or put into place was usually family led, saying, this is what we want or this is what we want to do. And us deciding if that was something we could do and then making it part of our everyday. So yeah, got to be super creative and also learn a different side of the business. I was a funeral director for maybe 20% of my time at Return Home, and the rest was doing stuff that I had no idea what I was doing. So it was a learning experience for sure.
A lot more lengthy process than a lot of these other disposition options that we're accustomed to. What was it like kind of having that period of time where the families could come visit and you potentially had more time with them in a way? What was that like?
It was healing for me as a funeral director because I got to make real relationships with these people. Some of these families were the first to congratulate me on my new job at Parting Stone. Like that's how much of a relationship I've built with these people. I got to walk with them through some of the first things that you wouldn't traditionally get to in a funeral home. I got to be there when they were having their first meeting with the lawyer because they were doing it on their laptop at the facility. Like little things where they tell me about cleaning out an apartment or things that I normally wouldn't get to hear about. I got to have real human connection with the families I was taking care of.
And what's interesting too about that, besides that ability to connect, we hear about aftercare and we have ideas about, unless you've lost, I think, someone close to you or participated in that process of after, there is a lot that has to happen. And I think as a funeral director, you may not be privy to that until it touches you personally. And so for you all getting to kind of hear about some of those challenges or those small accomplishments or whatever they might be was probably, it felt very privileged, I would imagine, for you.
Absolutely a privilege. And also, like, you can give a family as many resources as exist, but sometimes all they need is someone to listen and say, good job. Like, well done on doing that, or I'm so sorry that sucks.
Yeah,
And you can't give that through a letter in the mail. So having them interact with us on a daily basis gave me insight into their process and also gave them someone who would listen.
that's awesome. And how often do people come and visit the vessels?
There was usually at least one person coming in each day. I mean, we had a lot of families from out of state, so those vessels didn't get visited as often, but there was usually at least one person coming in each day. Some families would call and let us know they were coming. Others were surprises and they just drop in. Some never came. Some came every day. It was wildly all over the place. Some months the facility would be full, and some months it would be empty.
Okay. And I like how you would comment too on the vessels being warmer on some days than other days. Like I
That
thought
was
that
my
was
favorite
fascinating.
part. Yeah,
That
so that because of the activity inside, the vessels get warm and their family can feel their energy inside that vessel. They can feel the warmth from the outside.
wow, that's amazing. And how long were they in the vessels?
The phase one vessel was 30 to 40 days, and then phase two was another 30 days.
Okay, so it's not too terribly long. I was surprised too at the amount of soil that results from NOR, but then when I saw it in the pictures, I was like, holy cow. And I love that you all had like the small, like huggable bags that you gave people. Like your packaging was thoughtful. It wasn't just like, here's a bag of soil, like you went to Home Depot and just put a random, you know what I mean? It was really nicely done. And I thought that was a nice touch, the
Yeah.
huggable bag. That was pretty
That's
neat.
a learning point from families again. Like we would have families come in and try and hug those big 20-pound bags. And when you're a 90-year-old lady, that's kind of hard to do. So learning that maybe we need a smaller bag that people can hug and open up and touch and smell when they come and pick up their person.
And it's not cold metal, so even just the tactile of feeling of it is probably nice for them.
Absolutely.
So you were at Return Home, and then now you are at Parting Stone. Tell us about your new role at Parting Stone.
Yeah, it came out of the blue for me. I've been a client of Parting Stone multiple times personally. I'm one of those people that doesn't have like photographs in my memory, like I can't see images. So
Mhm.
having something tactile is really, really important for me. So I lost my ride or die dog Abe uh, 5 years ago now, and he came to Parting Stone, and I have carried a stone with me in my bra actually every day since I've had him back. So I knew Parting Stone from a customer perspective. And when I left Return Home, I really wanted to just go back to being a funeral director. That was, I had missed traditional funeral service. It was where kind of my heart was, and that was my plan. And then in pops just into my LinkedIn messages and was like, "Hey, you ever thought about Parting Stone?" And I was like, "Actually, I feel like Parting Stone is the only company that would get me to jump over to kind of the supplier side of things."
Mhm.
And so we had numerous back and forth Zooms talking about what a role would look like for me. And they ultimately created head of relationships and community, which means I get to carry a lot of what I started to do at Return Home over to Parting Stone. But then I also still get to interact with families and learn their stories and learn how to tell their stories to the public and funeral homes alike. So it kind of has been created as the perfect role for my new skills that I have found.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about the process With parting stone, can it be cremated remains, teramated remains that come to you? Any type, like what form do the need to be when they come to parting stone?
They essentially need to be ashes, cremated remains, aquamated remains. We can work with some NOR facilities who work with the Natural Funeral out of Colorado because they dry their bones and make them into a powder that looks
Hmm.
similar to cremated remains. So we can work with those. There's some states like Washington where you're not allowed to separate the bones, so we can't work with those NOR facilities. But for the most part, it's cremated remains and alkaline hydrolysis remains.
So I know that typically, like in imagery, the stones are white. Does the color of the material that you receive impact the color of the resulting stones?
The color that we receive does not impact the stones, but we do receive a wide range of colors of cremated remains. It's kind of wild to me that there's not more of a standard for for what they're supposed to look like. Anything from all the way completely black to all the way to those fluffy white alkaline remains.
Hmm.
So there's definitely a scale of completed cremations that we receive, but that does not have any impact on the final color of the stone. That we think entirely relies on the chemical makeup of the person. That changes the color of the stone at the end. And I've seen some here in the last few days that have been, a dark black, a little bit blue, some browns, and it's just kind of the person's individual makeup that
Oh, I thought you were
makes their
describing. For a
color.
minute, I thought you were describing like what you received. Like I'm like, oh my God,
Oh no,
browns and black. Like you already had me when they're like started getting black, like mailing black cremated remains. And if you're a crematory operator, I'm not going to wag my finger at you, but come on now, y'all know better than that, right? They should not be
yes,
black.
they
So
should not.
no,
We do receive a lot of black and we do receive a lot of chunky, which is also concerning. Um, for some reason, my brain thought there was more of a standard, and that has not been the case. But it
interesting.
does not affect the end stone, thankfully.
Okay, you said you were at the lab this week. Tell us
Mhm.
about the lab. What is that like?
Oh my gosh, it blows my mind. So, for the Professional Women's Conference that happened here in New Mexico, that was the first time I'd ever come to see Parting Stone in person. And I had been part of that group that when the price raised at Parting Stone, I was like, oh my God, this is, no one's going to pay this kind of money, blah, blah, blah. And then I come here and I see, oh, this is people creating for people. These remains are cared for through this entire 8 to 10 week process. It's a long process. They are shaped by hand. They are like this is science happening, and now I completely understand where we're at here. And then to come this week, and I got to roll stones myself, and I've watched like the entire process kind of happen at each stage, and it blows my mind that someone could think this process up and figure it out and put it into action like we have here, and two, that it creates something so beautiful at the end. Like this, I want to call it art, but we don't call it art, it's science, and what the families do with it at the end is art. But it's kind of beautiful to watch this sometimes black powder at the beginning turn into gorgeous blue stones at the end. It blows my mind.
Now, do animal stones differ in any type of color from the human stones?
No, they're mostly all that kind of white or off white. We did have a cat that I saw the other day that was named, I think, like Dragon, and his stones came out completely black. Um,
Wow.
Again, just the makeup, and we don't really know yet. We're hopeful to do more research on that, but it's something to do with the makeup of the individual pet or person.
Wow, that's fascinating. I think what's interesting about that is you don't really, I guess when you imagine like cremated remains, you don't think of like any type of characteristic. So, like, obviously they're of that person, but you just imagine that any unique traits would have been burnt away or dissolved away. That's really fascinating.
We're still individual, no matter how much we try to take that away.
No, I mean, that's a great point. And people can send you cremated remains or um, alkaline hydrolyzed remains at any point, right? So if they've got some sitting at home and they're not sure what to do, they can send them to you.
Yep, absolutely. It doesn't matter if they've been in the closet for 20 years or cremated last week. It doesn't matter at all.
Now tell me, how many stones does an average person yield?
This one blows my mind a little bit too. 40 to 80, depending on the person. So it's a
Okay.
large amount of stones at the end, which is cool because you have so many, you can do so many different things with them. But yeah, 40 to 80 per adult person.
Oh, wow. Okay. My mind immediately went to like a rock bed in the yard. Those would be great for a flower bed, right? Or you could have people draw on them. What is one of the most interesting things that you've been made aware of that families have done with the stones?
Yeah. So I used to offer parting stones at a funeral home that I worked at before return home. So my favorite story is personal to that. And the family came in and they had a cabin out in Gig Harbor in Washington on the water. And grandpa would spend every summer out there just in the water constantly. And so all the grandkids skipped his rocks out into the water out the front of their home. And because they were so white, they can see those rocks there to this day, and know that grandpa's out there in the water still.
Oh, that's
So I
cool.
really like that one. But I've seen all kinds of stories of people traveling and leaving rocks all over the place. I carry my one with me every day, and the rest are in my potted plants at home for Abe. It's really just like NOR, it's up to the person's imagination what they do with the ending result.
I will tell you, I liked how within the movie it showed the people had that used it as for potting soil for their own plants. So they knew that those plants had their loved ones' remains in them, and there was such a warmth to that versus an urn on a shelf. It was so different, and the fact that there's a continuity there of giving within the soil, and I feel like even with the rocks, because you can put them to use, there's some kind of, I mean, not to the extent of soil, but there's an opportunity for some continuity with those. So,
Yeah, you're forced to do something. Where a lot of times with an urn we put it away. You're kind of with the soil and the stones, you're forced to do something. You can't just really leave it in the closet.
now let me ask your advice about something. Let's say I have some stones of my grandmother and then I die. Are the stones labeled in such a way that people will know that's my grandmother in the flower pot if they like flip them over or
No.
anything? They aren't labeled. Okay.
Nope. They are not labeled. You could choose to if you wanted to, but our whole thing is we want them to be just stones that you could leave anywhere, that you could put anywhere. And maybe grandma's just going to go on a travel with someone else after you die in that plant pot. Yeah, no identifying information on individual stones.
How do the families know they're getting their person stones? What do you guys do for that?
Oh, we have an intense chain of custody situation that starts as soon as their box from USPS comes through the door. Uh, they are triple tagged,
Hmm.
placed in a bin that is also tagged. And then we have a barcode system that follows them throughout the entire process. If they come with a tag from the crematory, and that's an if, that tag follows them through the process too and comes home with them. And we try to clean it up after it's kind of come out of the crematory, and looks a bit burnt. So, yeah, they followed multiple different ways: paper trail, digital trail, and then that cremation tag.
I love the digital tracking system. I think if you're in a location, whether it's doing what you're doing or even in just a funeral home situation, having that tracking so you know where someone is within the building and who handled it last, I feel like I know it's kind of progressive probably for some firms, and maybe they don't have the volume to find that of value. But I think for a busier location or one that's handling quite a bit of calls, that would be really. And we had that at the DoD mortuary in Dover has that. So every time a person moves through, you know exactly where they're at. And I think SCI is using something similar within their internal systems as far as tracking. And I feel like that's the way things
Yeah,
are.
yeah. At return home, we used the gather system. I mean, we only had 200 calls a year, so it wasn't like crazy busy like an SCI care center, but it also allowed the families to see where their person was in the process. And Parting Stone does the same thing. So families have access and get emails as their person moves through the process. And I
Mhm.
feel like that just cuts anxiety for families like in half. It also cuts our customer service needs. in half because their families already get the answer themselves without having to make that call. And it's really simple to implement. There's programs out there like Gather that have it like set up for you and can build something like custom for like they return home. So it's super easy to implement and it just makes life so much easier.
I would think so too. We've talked about you at Partingstone, and now I want to ask you about what was it like to get the call that you had been chosen for the Inspiration Award? Did you see that
Ooh,
coming at all? Like, what was
um,
that like?
I had no idea. I had no idea. I was planning to go to Professional Women's Conference anyway, and then I was in an airport, I think in California, when Lori called me to let me know, and she said to me after, "I didn't know that you were excited about it because I was crying and just couldn't like say words." Um, it was just this confirmation that I was on the right track, that I was doing things that people were noticing. It was it's still hard to talk about. Like, it blows my mind to think about it to this day that NFDA recognized me as an inspirational woman. Like, what? That's crazy. Um, yeah, mind blowing.
So, you are the Inspiration Award. You're now at Partingstone. We talked about that. We talked about your time at Return Home. When you think about your time, because you've also, you've been around licensed for a minute, you've seen probably a lot of changes within consumer trends and things like that. If you could be in charge for an entire day and make one significant change within funeral service, like wave a wand, what would it be?
That we stop trying to take things from people and keep it behind a curtain. I think that the new consumer cannot place value on something that they don't understand and can't see. It's not that they don't trust you, it's that they need to understand what they're paying for and what value they're getting from it. So if we can open the doors and educate more, whatever form that takes, um, I think we will set us up to be a better death care profession in the future.
How do you feel about the potential change? And this kind of ties in what you're talking about as far as like removing curtains and being more transparent. The FTC is contemplating requiring funeral homes to share their general price list on their websites. What are your thoughts about that?
I think it's an absolute yes. I will not use a funeral home that doesn't have their pricing online. I do have a caveat to that. I think just posting a GPL is confusing to the public, and there are many tools out there that let a consumer build a contract on your website so they get accurate pricing of what they actually want. I think it's a must for this generation. I'm a millennial. I'm not calling a funeral home to get their pricing. If it's not on their website, I'm not going to use them. Um, but I do think there's some, you know, caveats to that. And I think what it boils down to with those that have a problem with it is lack of confidence in their value. I think we got to get better at explaining our value as funeral directors, funeral homes.
No, I agree. I feel the same way about if you're going to have the price list, you've got to have some form of support for what it means. You don't want a family to read the line about direct cremation and come in with a price in their mind, and then you start talking about alternative containers or if they want a visitation or something, and now they're going to feel like they got bamboozled. I think it's important to
100%.
provide some type of support for sure. And what's interesting is some funeral homes have been putting their pricing out from the beginning, and it's not like your competitor can't get it anyway. They can come down the street and get it. It's not a secret. It's not. So,
Yeah.
and I understand benchmarking and things like that, but I think understanding your value and feeling confident is key. And I think that because of a lack of that, you'll see people discounting themselves a lot. And I think some of that too has to do with they themselves don't understand something they're offering potentially, or they understand it and they just don't think it's worthwhile themselves. Because I feel like sometimes there's biases that go in there that people may or may not even realize when it comes to how we present things or discussion of choices. And then, I hate your mom would like this casket. I hate that so much.
Yeah.
I bet they would choose this. I'm sorry, and you know this how exactly. How assuming is that? How
Yeah,
come no one's still
that's
doing that out
crazy
there?
to me.
Please. Please don't
I'm
be doing
sure they are somewhere.
that. Somewhere someone's like, I don't see a problem with that. I connect with my families. I make them do what they want. Oh my
I'm a
goodness.
mind reader. Yep.
Right? I feel like things have changed significantly because just from the new generations and expectations. And I noticed that even within newer entrants, like my students do a project where they talk about designing their own funeral. And I can't tell you how many select a woven casket, a bamboo, or something of that nature that's in a natural container. A significant number of them want something like that. So it's really
Yeah.
interesting.
I think it all kind of boils down to that personalization and what you view that as, right? The standard metal or wood casket just doesn't show personality for a lot of people. So you're going for something that is woven and maybe does, or you're going through Titan and you're purchasing a bright pink casket because your funeral home doesn't offer that. So I feel like we're just getting into that kind of area where personalization is not a photo on a memorial folder anymore. It's speaking who I am through everything that exists at this funeral service. Um, and that comes into parting stone too. Like, you don't know what color your rocks are going to be when you get back, but they're going to be whatever color your person decided to make them. And having that at the front of a service instead of a traditional looking urn and having rocks that people can take at the end, it's just a little bit more personality added to something that a lot of people are seeing as kind of cold and sterile now.
Yeah, or like you described, it's a bit transactional, which is unfortunate.
Yep, exactly.
I think that's one of the indicators too. When people are like, "Oh, AI could do," I'm scared AI will take my job. Well, if you're an order taker, probably, right? I mean, that's kind of the
Yeah.
reality of things. Um, and we can connect with people and take the time, and I think some of that with some folks that are more comfortable with technology, they may have challenges with that potentially. But I think that's an area of opportunity is to learn how to listen well, and because you can learn so much about a person through conversation with the family to where the ideas can start churning. And I'm
Right.
sure you,
I always hate it when people say, I'm a funeral director, I direct. Okay, I'm a funeral director and I shut up and listen. And that's how I connect with my families. I feel like families don't need us for the practicals
hmm
anymore. They can purchase a casket somewhere. They can do a service at the Hilton down the street. They can get their folders printed through FedEx. They don't need us for those things. They need us to be a human caring for their human. And
hmm
that is a skill that you will never get from AI or from Amazon or Costco. We need to get better at being humans that are caring for humans.
I agree. So I do want to ask you about the movie because the timing of the premiere was interesting. You were in the movie significantly within the movie, but you were not at the premiere. And I wanted to ask you,
Mhm.
as the film makes its way to different film festivals and things, because it is evident that you put a lot of effort into your work and now it's being displayed. How does that feel for you to not necessarily be involved in the release of the film and the showings?
I have two feelings. One is it's an amazing resume for me out there. It's cool to have people see what a good funeral director does. I really am excited about that. It is absolutely heartbreaking that I'm not a part of it at the screening level. I did have the opportunity, but I was not in the right headspace for that to be a good thing for me and probably not a good thing for return home. So I chose to stay out of the first screenings. I'm learning to heal my nervous system, is what I'm told by my therapist since leaving
Mhm.
return home. And that includes deciding what I do and don't want to be a part of. Um, and for right now, I don't want to be a part of that. In the future, I love JJ. I'm obsessed with JJ, the documentary producer. We text all the time. There's definitely some upcoming things that I will be a part of, but I'm protecting myself and I'm okay with that.
I think I might have talked about this, and I wrote an article for FSI about my thoughts about the film and different things. And one
Hmm.
of the things that I
Yeah,
really appreciated, oh, did you see it? I'm not sure if you did.
I did.
Oh,
I
good.
did.
Okay. Well, thank you for reading it. But the part where I felt like it was showing what we truly look like as practitioners, to the public, and it wasn't in some exaggerated, ridiculous activities, or like it was just very simple things like the act of bathing someone. Um, I felt like we were well represented for probably the first time in so much as I can think. And it was nice to see that. It was refreshing, and to see what was interesting. And I actually talked, because I talked to Bree and Micah after the film about this, was the parts where Micah could express his feelings like at a service, and then you
Mhm.
and Bree would not. And it was funny in a way because he thought there was something wrong with him, right? For crying. And Brie even said it too. She's like, no, that's the normal human response to things. But there was a scene where I want to say he might have been staying next to you, and it was a difficult
Mhm.
service, and he was emotional, and you weren't. And I think when you look at an image like that, right, like people don't understand like why we don't cry with them sometimes, or they don't understand how we can appear as stoic as we do. And it's kind of like the whole thing about a duck, right? The duck looks calm on top, but the feet are churning in the water. I feel like that's a good representation of us as funeral service practitioners, because um, you have that experience of wanting to cry with them, and sometimes you will, but for the most part in that sea, you're the rock in the sea that's keeping the calm. And that was illustrated within the movie really well. And I liked the fact that even though Micah did not understand, like he was not a funeral service practitioner, but you included him in what you were doing, so he understood it and was exposed to it as you were. And I thought that was a nice touch within the film. And it was a
It was
beautiful
important for
movie.
me always to have Micah understand what we were doing and why we were doing it, and this wasn't just a business. So that was part of why I would bring him into those situations, but it was also there was something good for me to see how a normal human reacts, because I do
Hmm.
look at that scene in the movie and I think there's something broken in me. And I think that yes, we are stoic with our families because we are that, you know, solid in the storm. But also if you don't feel that emotion at all, something has happened to you. And I was at that point in there where I was not feeling it at all.
Yeah.
Um, Hence going back to healing my nervous system. Oftentimes it was bring Micah in so I could feel through him.
No, that's
Yeah,
really interesting. I think we are masters of compartmentalization, and I think sometimes to our own detriment. And I think the switch gets stuck.
absolutely.
And I think we carry that in life, in other situations with people. And when we should be reacting, it's almost like we just don't know how to.
Incredible. I have an incredible girlfriend who I will point out to me all the time, like, this is not a normal conversation. This is not a normal way to react to this. And it forces me to reflect on, is this because I can compartmentalize and I'm just doing my job well, or is this actually detrimental to me? Like, is the switch stuck, or like what's going on here? So I'm forever grateful that this person has come into my life who now is like, boop, 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 you need to figure something out.
Now, that's fantastic. When did you realize potentially that your switch was stuck? What was the moment where was it that moment in the movie? Or did you kind of know it and you just were operating because you had to?
It was probably my last 6 or 7 months at return home. I really realized, like, I think I might be burnt out. I think things have changed for me. I don't feel the same way about what I'm doing. I can't sleep, and all of these kind of things started to bubble up. And I was in a funeral home that allowed me to feel those things, where oftentimes I probably would have been like, shove it down, keep doing it, because um, a lot of the things at traditional funeral homes you can kind of just do over and over again, and it's just a routine at that point. And return home, I had to think every day. So it became apparent to me, like, oh, I am not very good at doing social media anymore because I can't figure out how to tell a story because I can't connect to it anymore. Little things like that. And I was finally like, I something is wrong. And I've never I've been burnt out before, but I've never been able to explore that burnout like I had been able to at Return Home. So yeah, I recognized it this time.
As you're working through it, how is that changing your quality of life?
Oh my gosh. I took over a month off and did a whole lot of travel and not much else. I read a lot. I will never have old Katey back, but whatever new Katey form shows up in as her full self, I will be more than happy to have her. I am in the process right now of learning what work life balance is and not having my phone ring 24/7 and being able to turn it off at the end of the day and little things like that. Like I can sleep better because I'm not like, is my phone ringing constantly? Um, it's just, I feel like a whole new person, and I'm excited to see where Katey goes.
I think it's fantastic. I love how accepting you are, recognizing that you're just in a period of change and you're like, whatever, whoever I am at the end of this, I'm going to be good with that and welcome that.
Yeah.
I think that's so important. I think
It's not, I don't feel like it's a journey you can change. It's a journey you go on, and you're going to be who you're going to be at the end, and just enjoy the journey.
Have you noticed any of your relationships with other people as you're going through this experience have changed?
Hmm. I've learned where there's negativity in my life that I don't need anymore. And at some point, having to cut that off, I've learned how to identify those good relationships, healthy relationships, and really hold on to them and feed them instead of just taking from them. Um, yeah, I wasn't at a point where I could give anymore. I was just taking, and those people that were there to who could see that and were able to give, like now I'm able to feed back those relationships, which is not really something I'd thought of before. Relationships were just relationships and they were what they were, but I'm learning about give and take. Um, yeah, it's been kind of cool.
I'm excited for you. I think it's wonderful. Yeah, that's fantastic. And if you're listening to this and any of this is resonating with you, perhaps do some reflection and get some help. And we're not trained on how to process our work, and I feel like we forget that it is difficult work. And the
Yeah,
support mechanisms that you would see with first responders or medical providers, we don't have a lot of those same things. And so it's important to kind of recognize when you do need help. Peers are great, but they're not professionals, right? They can only do so much. Um, so
and
I
they're
think it's
carrying
really
their own damage.
exactly. They see through the lens of it. Having that external source of support, I think, is really important. And recognizing that I think it's almost normal now to be abnormal and be seeing a therapist or mental health professional. I have one, and the benefit is sometimes in just speaking about something, I can come to my own conclusion, or um, they'll shift the lens because sometimes we have things framed in such a way. And I think it's really valuable, and it makes us, like you said, it gives you the ability to give of yourself
Hmm.
more. And it gives you more of yourself to give. It's almost like you're releasing a dam a little bit. And now the you is growing on the inside in a good way. And I think as we are authentic caregivers, I think that's really crucial, especially for sustainability in the field. So I appreciate your candidness and your willingness to talk about that very much. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
So where can people find you? Are you going to any upcoming conferences or events?
Oh, I am unsure right now. I think I'm going to be at the South Carolina convention. I'm going to be at the Washington State convention. I would definitely be at NFDA. Um, Probably some more in there. I'll be at the Professional Women's Conference, of course.
Oh, good. Okay,
Um,
I'll see you there. That's in like 2 weeks.
it is, yeah. Like,
I am bringing a tiny fur-covered microphone so that I can talk to people while I'm there. So
so,
if a little tiny fur-covered microphone ends up being like smushed into your face, that's me. I'll have that.
okay, I will smush mine into your face too.
Yeah,
So
we can do like a like the crossover of the fuzzy microphones. That would be
I'm into
fantastic.
it.
So I look forward to that. Thank you so much for sharing your story, for the time you spent with us. I wish you nothing but happiness and success in your new role at Parting Stone. I think that
Thank
they're
you.
lucky to have caught you at the right time, it sounds like too. It sounds like it was kind of meant to come and be when it did. And and I think that's encouraging too. Sometimes we don't know what's ahead of us because we can't see past the hill, but sometimes one thing leads to where you're supposed to be. And you just have to kind of go with it and have faith. And so I'm excited so much for you, for the families you're going to serve, and in your new role, you're going to be providing support to the rest of us out there. So I thank you in advance for that. And I thank you all for
Thanks for
listening.
having me.
This has been Funeral Service The Insider, the podcast. I will have contact information about Parting Stone and Katey within the show notes. This has been a fantastic interview, and thanks for listening and watching.
Funeral service is more than a profession. It's a calling. Starmark understands the care, dignity, and efficiency you need to provide for the families you serve. That's why we specialize in sensible product solutions designed to meet your needs. If you're looking for sustainable, economical, and efficient container and casket solutions, Starmark is here to support you. Because presentation means everything, you deserve a partner you can trust. Starmark, the cremation solutions leader. Visit starmarkcp.com today and discover the difference.